Hello and welcome. I'm Nicole, your host and head of business product marketing and enablement at Canva. Today, we're going to have a great conversation about the importance of visual communications within organizations and how design proficiency can drive business impact, innovation, and ultimately a valuable return on investment. If you're new to the phrase, visual communication simply means using images and other visual elements to secure attention, to convey meaning, and leave a lasting impression. This is something we've investigated in detail in our second edition of the Visual Economy Report. We're going to unpack some of the key findings, and we've got a fantastic panel here to help us do it. I'll let them introduce themselves in a minute, and as you may know, we love a good icebreaker here at Canva. So please share what your role is, and also, what's the most impactful or memorable piece of visual communication you've come across? Let's start with Shreya.
Hello, everyone. I'm Shreya Kushari, Chief Client Officer at OMD, media agency within Omnicom Group. In my role, I currently partner with our clients like Canva to bring to life innovative media solutions, keeping them up to speed with the future of media and how best to accomplish this. My most memorable piece of visual communication would hands down be the recent launch of the Apple Vision Pro, which was a surround sound in real life, in-person conference announcement followed by advertising and media campaigns that were pretty much on point and done by the Omnicom team.
Amazing. Wayne?
My name is Wayne Kurtzman. I'm Research Vice President for Worldwide Social Communities and Collaboration Research for IDC, a global research advisory firm with over 1,100 analysts worldwide. And I'd have to say my most recent favorite came from a nonprofit celebrating the U.S. 4th of July, which utilized AI to create a montage of animals to kind of tell the story in more of a fun way, and it kind of captured the imagination on several levels.
And Damien?
Hello, everyone. I lead integrated marketing for two media brands, Fast Company and Inc. Business Media, which means I work with global clients from all sectors and industries to build smart programs and partnerships. I live and work in New York. Our office is downtown. Every morning, all day, I am met with a visual feast on the streets of New York. And recent events have shown how iconic visuals can propel markets, nations, and movements. But there is one image that popped up in March of 2017 that I can still not get out of my head, and that is Fearless Girl. That statue and sculpture that faced off against the charging bull of Wall Street captured the hearts and minds of people around the world with one simple image that resonates, I think, to this day.
Yes, Fearless Girl is so powerful. I remember visiting it back then. I love the diversity of responses here because it truly shows the universe of possibility and applications for visual communications. So for me, some of my favorite examples come from journalism, where we've seen incredibly impactful work blending data, storytelling, and visualization. One that comes to mind is a Washington Post long-form article about what it's like to scale Everest at every stage of the process, really visualizing that story as well as putting it to words. So now stepping back and looking at the macro, another phrase you might have heard recently is the term visual economy. We define the visual economy as the increasing value of visual communication in driving engagement, growth, and success within organizations. So let's explore what this looks like in practice. Wayne, let's start with you. You're a big believer in the importance of visual communications and its relationship to how we communicate and collaborate. I'd love to get your take on the visual economy we live in today and how that's influenced the way we work.
This is only the beginning of the visual economy, but visuals are not new. The world is shifting. It's becoming more visual, more engaging, more entertaining, more interesting, and a bit more fun. IDC research shows almost 80% of businesses find the use of visual collaboration helps people work better, but it also helps them be more productive and feel more connected with each other. And at a time where enterprise success is totally dependent on engaging and empowering not just your workforce, but your partners and your customers. This becomes so much easier with good visual communications. Content itself is evolving right now. So, like I said, we're at the beginning, but we're moving to a time where we'll do more and more work on intelligent collaborative workspaces. These will resemble a multiplayer game at times, and they will focus on visual, equitable, and inclusive elements and facilitate the creation of even more visual content to help work get done quicker and easier.
Absolutely. And I would say that the visual economy is expansive in that it touches how we communicate and collaborate both internally within organizations and externally within the market. So when we look externally, it's obvious that we're visually driven as a society and that content is king. So I wanted to give this question to Damien. Inc. and Fast Company are two really influential business media brands, and they've got extraordinary platforms. How has this visual boom influenced the way your brands scale content across platforms?
Thanks, Nicole. Well, storytelling is really experience. So coming at journalism, or as I might comment, storytelling for a marketing partner, we have to think about it today more as an experience rather than just a form. And so that experience is going to be driven by visual expression, visual treatment. There's one report: the brain processes images 60 times faster than words, and stories are 20 times more memorable than facts. So when you put those together, they are kind of the pillars or foundation to being a visual storyteller, a visual journalist first. Design is at the core of Fast Company as a brand and has been since its inception 30 years ago. So this isn't a new concept to the journalists at our company and brands, but it is propelling a new way of telling stories, showing rather than telling. And that's a key component, whether it's B2B, B2C, journalism, or marketing.
I love that. And I love that finding you mentioned about how visual content is just so much more memorable and it sticks in people's heads a lot easier than written content or verbal content.
I don't remember, Nicole, the article about Fearless Girl, but I don't need to.
Exactly. You saw it. You saw the buzz. It was everywhere for a moment. And that is so true. And so I'm curious, Shreya, you work in a world where marketing collateral is just the tip of the iceberg. And we've got this visual boom, and your clients are becoming more and more aware of the power of visual content and the need for visual content to stand out in this world. And visual content is important both in how you deliver innovation externally, but also how your internal strategies and processes have evolved to support those clients. Could you talk a little bit more about that?
Today, we are competing with the attention of our audiences. Our audiences are looking at visuals faster than they are reading the content. Damien quoted some fantastic stats, and we can testify to that as well. We see that in our clients. And we see it across different forms of content. Audience attention is completely fragmented in the types of content they want to consume and the channels they want to be communicated with. So with this backdrop, we have transformed the nature of our content. It needs to connect with our audiences instantly and keeping them coming back and wanting more. So what is that sequential messaging? What is the surround sound of that campaign? And very, very visual. So we absolutely are changing the rules of the game. It has to be visual. We need to communicate a lot of information, but very simply. That is the mantra for today, whether we are talking to our clients, whether we are talking to our employees. A great example that comes to mind for internal communication was how we publish our thought leadership. We publish it for our employees, but then we also package it further for our clients, which is external facing. We issue rapid responses, and this has to be turned around within a day to our colleagues and clients. And we need to communicate the impact of new trends, new data that has come in, and this has to be done very succinctly. So part of this is keeping our internal communication fun. I think Wayne used that word. Fun is absolutely a foundational ask, not something that we do more. You have to do it. It's important as we work across markets, across global cultures, and hybrid teams. Visually, it's easier to bring people together and makes it easy to convey an idea irrespective of language, which is very important for global brands. Today's communication collateral has to be a bridge across hybrid teams to help foster global collaboration across cultures, time zones. This, I think, would kind of encapture the best practices that we are using now.
It's amazing to hear, what you've done at OMD and how scaling across employees and clients is something that cannot be limited to the realm of creatives anymore, just because of the sheer amount of content that we're creating in this market and within our organizations. So Canva's latest visual economy report revealed that 92% of leaders expect employees in non-design roles to have design skills and knowledge. Wayne, I'd like to kick this question to you. What do you think is driving this push for design literacy? And what do you think design literacy looks like in practice for someone in marketing or sales, for example?
Well, start outside of work. People are creating rich content for what's important to them, what they want to communicate, and it's also true inside of work. Who we used to refer to as the creatives, we're starting to raise people by giving them the right tools to start to be creative, to learn to be creative in marketing and sales. They're the early adopters. They understand the power of design and visual impact. And by mentoring and modeling others, by helping them along, all of a sudden, everyone is starting to create more impactful content. So even look at collaboration. Before, that was all text. It was text for decades. But now visuals are talking louder and clearer, especially when they're well executed. And it kind of goes back to a point where, and to paraphrase Jeff Jarvis, the educator and journalist, the internet is now a place. But let me add that the internet is a place where people learn, they create. They collaborate, they act, react, they affect transactions in real time. So the internet is like a physical place. And that takes a little mind shift to accept that as a physical place. And when you do, that helps empower both digital literacy and design literacy.
Absolutely. And I think the internet and human creativity really drives this groundswell of realization and empowerment for what is needed. I actually read a piece of research from IDC that said 55% of enterprise collaboration apps, including visual ones, start off as unauthorized solutions. Now we can laugh at this, and as business leaders, maybe we can be a little bit horrified as well. But people are always going to find ways to make their jobs easier. However, as leaders, we need to ensure that there's a correlation between the tools we use and business performance, among other things. So I'm curious, Damien, when you look at visual communications and design proficiency, do you see a correlation between these things, visual communications, creativity, and business performance?
Absolutely, Nicole. I think if you think of the idea of branding and rebranding and how important that is, which is a visual practice, if you will, done well, clear, cogent design and branding or rebranding across all platforms, products, spaces, that can elevate a brand and business and product overnight. Not done well, it can deflate that same or another business overnight as well. So the impact on business and the ability to bridge distances, to streamline, create productivity, amplify creativity and collaboration is a business imperative, especially with design, visual at the forefront of that brand experience, of that brand message. And you gave an example of an immersive storytelling at another media brand earlier. We have to think that way as journalists. we have to think as visual storytellers first and foremost, and so do marketers. I think there's so much in common between brand storytellers and journalistic storytellers. They have to get it right. And when they do, ideas flourish, business flourishes, opportunity flourishes. So the connection to business success is direct.
I think so too. And Shreya, I'd love to get your thoughts here as well.
Sure. Our perspective is a little different as an agency, but we absolutely see it at OMD itself. A quick example is for visual communication, we have social channels. We need to be able to communicate very quickly across the globe on key brand themes, especially when we are going after a new business pitch. And most recently, we've been using Canva as our visual communications platform. We have saved time by creating social assets at scale by about 60 to 70%. Imagine the efficiency increase that we are seeing as a global brand as we carry out our internal daily tasks for clients. So this is absolutely an imperative now to get to market using these platforms.
Yeah, and we've been talking about a lot about scale and productivity and efficiency. And one thing in Canva's report that's noted is that 44% of business leaders are actually using visual communications platforms on a daily basis. And I'm sure this number is only going to go up. So I'm curious, Shreya, actually, given the increasing expectation for non-designers to create visual content, how can organizations effectively support this requirement? What does OMD do?
So absolutely, Nicole, there is an increasing expectation from my colleagues, my teammates, to not just excel in media planning, buying, analytics, and everything that typically defines the skill set of a media planner. We have our job, when we look at our job description, is deliver modern media strategy. But the truth is that all of us have to successfully articulate this strategy into a compelling story arc. And we have to do this regularly in client meetings multiple times a day, strategy presentations, RFP responses. And we not only have to do it sitting in a silo, but in collaborative teams across time zones and cultures. So the increasing ask to create visual content at a cadence is absolutely unprecedented today. So as I think about it within this changing dynamic, we have to support our teammates by adding storytelling and design training into a larger learning and development module. At Omnicom and at OMD, we have a separate function which supports this. So we have instituted training for every employee depending on their skill sets. But given where we are moving today, design and storytelling has to be incorporated very rigorously throughout our L&D programs. This is also where we have to begin to embrace technology. It starts with training, right? As we look to master skill sets that aren't necessarily native to our job requirement, we have to humanize technology. Let's call it artificial intelligence. I hate the word artificial, but it is. Identify and get more comfortable with the right tools that help us. We are incorporating AI into our media planning, into our reporting systems, into creating dashboards. But I think this can be pushed a little bit further in the design space as well, because we are not designers, we are media planners, we are media strategists. So I think the fullest potential comes when we embrace it and showcase how we are able to make repeatable tasks easier. We allow more upstream skills to be highlighted by the employee. We also leverage technology to increase workplace efficiency, and it helps create content at scale. So these are some very easy, implementable actions that we as organizations, we within OMD, are beginning to bring to our colleagues. We are bringing in technology, we're embracing AI in a way that upskills all of us.
I love that. And I love that focus on storytelling and creativity in the service of employee growth. So many organizations today, because really creativity and storytelling is an art, shy away from training of this kind. But the world is changing and we really need to double down on the spirit of human creativity. Now, you did mention a very hot word, Shreya. You mentioned artificial intelligence.
I did it.
Yeah. And I am curious. I wanted to touch on that a little bit. AI can really help support employee growth. It can support content needs. Wayne, I'd love to start with you. I'm curious to hear about the role you see AI playing in visual communications today and how that might evolve over the next couple of years.
Not too long ago, there was a generation that didn't grow up with mobile. Well, now we are the last generation who will remember a time before AI. Gen Alpha, they're about 13 years old now. They will never know a workplace or a secondary education without AI. So things are definitely changing. And this is only the start of AI. And to simplify, IDC has 3 distinct adoption curves that we look at. One is where we are right now, the experimental curve. This is opportunistic, affecting pretty much every worker with the ability to summarize and a number of other skills that we're seeing evolve right now. But then the adoption curve comes that really significantly impacts how every line of business works and how that success is measured. It's where AI becomes a trusted collaborator, and that's only a few more years in the future. Then AI everywhere. That will have significantly transformational use cases. But to stick with today, visuals that allow us to see information more clearly, data differently, to call out and enhance nuances that would have been invisible before. This is coming very quickly. AI provides a tremendous opportunity to iterate ideas and content much faster and get more impactful results at a quicker pace and to learn quicker along the way. AI will help develop that new set of analytics I alluded to. We're still stuck with the industrial era metrics, widgets per hour. That's going to change. In the industrial era, value came from machines, and the people who ran them could be replaced. But we're moving to a time that could very well place people at the center of value creation. And that becomes really important and changes how businesses work to a good extent. So we're on the verge right now of being able to integrate and connect systems that will enable us to identify examples of creativity and critical thinking and collaborative actions and tie them directly to customer outcomes. That'll be great for productivity. It'll be great for the customer, and it saves everyone more time. But we are looking at a whole new way to look at and measure the digital era coming up.
And that analytics piece is key because oftentimes we think about AI and content generation, and that's sort of where our thoughts begin and end. But really, as a marketer, it makes me very excited because we'll be able to know where we are impactful in more granular ways than ever before. And so while AI is going to be able to help us be more impactful, move faster, and generate a lot more content in a world that's already bursting with it, quality is going to become a major concern for leaders. We already see this proliferating in the market with AI-generated imagery, AI-generated text. There is just so much of it out there. So for leaders, particularly when our content represents our brand, I'm curious, how can AI help businesses strike a balance between quality and quantity? Damien, I'd like to start with you.
Sure, Nicole. I think as a journalistic enterprise, innovation is core to our journalistic brands, but we need to maintain the guardrails around quality in our journalistic storytelling and any work that we do for partners. And we're constantly iterating and refining our guidelines and policy internally for the journalists who work for us and for those of us who work on behalf of brands that trust us to storytell for themselves. That said, there are any number of ways to leverage AI to turn quality into quantity. And that could be take all manner of voice enabling every article that we might have, then translation of every article, translating the voice enabled articles across our websites, and summarization to turn articles into videos, into infographics, into slideshows, and propel our storytelling across cultures and regions and distances safely and with sensitivity and understanding. Those are great opportunities that just do more with the quality that you have, but create quantity out of that underlying originating quality. If AI tools married to the visual economy can make journalism or brands faster, smarter, cooler, brighter, sharper, whether it's B2B or B2C, you're powering content and engagement to new heights. And you just have to be a good steward with it. Easy to say, hard to actually do unless you are joined in a mission of doing it with purpose.
Absolutely. And I think, what you've just been talking about, I'm a really big believer in, because we will always need human creativity, and AI is really just going to help augment our ability to innovate. But it's still true that there's often a perceived tension between AI and human-led content. Do you see a way for both forces to come together, AI with a human touch? Have you seen this coming to fruition in your experience?
Absolutely. There is a perceived tension. And yes, we do have to find a way for both forces to come together. Damien's point of being good steward holds true ever more so as an agency when we are going to market on behalf of brands. So as we think through that, we have to be really careful and recognize this tension. We have to bring it together. And it is important for us to understand why does this tension exist, and that helps understand how we address it. So brand safety and putting guardrails in the way we go to market is really important. What is the value of embracing technology? If it is for scale, absolutely embrace it. But if it is to misguide or create misinformation or doesn't hold the ethical standards that we as a human race have upheld, then we do away with it. And I think that is the kind of guideline and discussion that we as stewards of various brands representing them have to bring forth. But this is also where, as I mentioned, Nicole, AI training and its role is so important so that we can clearly articulate this, and it shows the power of AI rather than focusing on all the things it should not be doing. It makes our lives easier. It makes us come together as a race as well. It breaks barriers of language, which is so powerful when you think about visual communication. And it helps tremendous amounts of data very simply and quickly. So this gives us humans more time to do tasks that are using parts of our brain that maybe technology hasn't yet unlocked or learned to mimic. So let's showcase those skills rather than focus on aspects that don't. AI helps with visual examples to tell a story. That story is articulated by the humans, but AI also gives suggestions which can be far more captivating, and it is okay to accept that. It has learned and processed large amounts of data to give us that suggestion. Now it is up to us as humans to accept it or reject it. And again, I mentioned our deployment of social assets globally. That wouldn't have happened if there wasn't a touch of technology that helps with efficiency. So yes, the content of social assets is human-driven, but scaling it through frameworks is done with the help of AI. So those are some nice examples of how we recognize the tension, but also address it.
Yeah, and not fear it. It's really a partnership. And of course, humanity is in the lead. And we need to make sure we've got the guardrails to protect our brand as AI technology evolves. But I really do believe it's something that should not be feared and instead should be leveraged. So we're already talking a little bit about the future and we're running out of time. So I want to ask you all one last question. I want you to fix your eyes on the future. How do you see design proficiency shaping the future of work. And what advice would you give to businesses wanting to get on board? Let's start with Damien.
I think Wayne touched on this earlier about the next generation and design proficiency or even design affinity for non-designers is starting almost just past birth. As I've said, we learn to swipe before we learn to wipe. And if you can forgive that phrase, there is an unparalleled design and visual economy force coming together in the next generation. It's not just the device, it's not just social media. It is an affinity for visual communications. We are the emoji and Bitmoji generation. This is going to only propel us further and further to sharper, clearer, deeply embedded communications. And if I'm interviewing to hire, a must hire is someone who has Canva skills. It's that simple. And almost all young people out of college have Canva on the bottom of their resume or the top. I think there's no turning back. This is the way of communications internally at companies, as Shreya spoke very eloquently about at OMT, and externally for her clients, our brands. Every brand is a storyteller. Every product is an image. It's so exciting that embracing it and embedding it in your business plan, how you hire and train, is an imperative for business leaders today, team leaders, department heads, you name it.
That couldn't be more true. Wayne, I'd love to get your thoughts.
I think one thing that frustrates me is when I speak with a company who has not yet learned how to tell its own story, that is not committed to its own narrative. And if you don't know your narrative, you can't communicate it, not externally, not internally. Now, we look at the evolution of work. It's becoming more visual, more collaborative, AI enhanced, and picking up those elements of a multiplayer game. It becomes important to be able to tell that narrative. To quote Alvin Toffler, the new core competency will be to learn, unlearn, and relearn. Visuals are not just for social content. They're how we communicate. They are the building blocks of how we communicate, and those building blocks are evolving right now. We're moving from that industrial economy. It had a great run. It's out the door. We're going to that brand new digital economy, and it is more visual, and you will need to learn, unlearn, and relearn as a company, as individuals, as department, and critically think about the content that you're testing. And trust becomes perhaps the single most important element. It is gained in drops. It is lost in buckets, but whether you're using collaborative applications, conferencing, virtual events, communities, any way you're communicating, the future is going to be visual.
That's so true. And I see parallels between what you and Damien were talking about, particularly around the new generation. You know, Gen Z is entering the workforce. They're Canva proficient. They're proficient in many visual communications tools. And when we look at Gen Z and Gen Alpha and how they communicate even with each other and socially, those channels, those ways of communicating are much more visual than they were when we were growing up. The game has really changed. We really have to unlearn, relearn, and grow from the experience. Now, Shreya, I'd love to hear what you think.
I agree with all the ways that we are looking into the future. The one thing I would say that as companies look to onboard, we have to keep in mind the macro strategy that the visual economy is entwined with our attention economy. In the future, the audience attention will continue to be fragmented, and we need to bring these together. It's a bridge. We need to train ourselves, create the rules, have a discussion on the guardrails, and be ready for this future, which may not look like the past, and that is okay. And allow visual communications, embrace it, and help it increase our reach and our engagement.
Absolutely. I love that you mentioned the attention economy. The world is only more and more crowded today than ever before, and our attention spans much smaller than they used to be. That's it for today, and thank you so much for joining us. We've had a great discussion on the importance of visual communications, its role in driving business impact, and the increasing need for design skills in the workplace. And thank you to those joining us online. I encourage you to continue exploring the power of visual communication in your organizations. If you wish to read the full visual economy report, we'll share the link in the chat. Otherwise, simply search for Canva Visual Economy Report. Thank you for your time and participation. Have a great week ahead. Goodbye.